The executive's hand was halfway to the phone when it rang. He was about to fire Warren Beatty. The decision was made. The paperwork was ready. 3 months of problems, broken schedules, budget overruns. Enough was enough. He picked up the phone. His boss's voice was ice cold. "Do not fire Warren Beatty." "Sir, he's 3 weeks behind schedule. He's costing us." I said, "Do not fire him." "Are we clear?" The line went dead. The executive sat there holding the phone. He'd never heard his boss sound like that. Not angry, afraid. Then he remembered his boss's daughter. The fundraiser last month. She'd left early, with Warren Beatty. The paperwork went into the shredder. That's when Hollywood executives realized something terrifying. You can't fire a man who's connected to everyone who could fire you. If you understand why some people become untouchable, not through power but through proximity, you're in the right place. This isn't a story about Warren Beatty, the womanizer. This is about Warren Beatty, the strategist, the man who understood that in Hollywood, personal relationships weren't just personal, they were infrastructure. Because by 1975, Warren Beatty hadn't just dated half of Hollywood. He'd built a network so dense, so interconnected, so carefully constructed that touching him meant risking relationships with people who could end careers. To understand how that worked, you need to understand Hollywood's real power structure in the 1970s. On paper, studio heads had the power. They greenlit projects. They hired and fired. They controlled budgets and distribution. But off paper, power was personal. It was family connections, political relationships, social circles. Who played golf with who? Whose daughter was married to whose son? Which families had dinner together? Hollywood wasn't just a business, it was a tribe. And tribes protect their own. Every executive knew this. Every agent used it. Every producer built their career on it. But Warren Beatty didn't just use the system. He became the system. While other actors networked at industry parties, Beatty dated the daughters of the people who ran those parties. While others played golf with executives, Beatty had breakfast with their wives the next morning. While others tried to get meetings with powerful people were calling Beatty to ask where their sister was. He wasn't networking. He was becoming family to the families that controlled Hollywood. And you can't destroy family without destroying yourself. It started innocuously enough. A senator's daughter. She was beautiful, intelligent, connected. They dated for 6 months. It ended amicably, but the senator still took Beatty's calls, still invited him to fundraisers, still introduced him to other powerful people. One relationship had created permanent access. Then a studio executive's niece, a brief romance, nothing serious. But suddenly that executive couldn't badmouth Beatty without his niece asking why he was attacking someone she cared about. Then a producer's ex-wife. That producers now had to be careful about any negative stories, because his ex-wife could make his divorce settlement much more complicated if she wanted to. Then a network president's daughter. She was 26, independent, made her own choices. But try telling a father he should tank someone's career when that someone just spent Thanksgiving at your house. Pattern after pattern, connection after connection. Each relationship creating a thread, and threads became a web, and the web became unbreakable. Beatty never planned it as strategy, but he understood what he was building. Each relationship was genuine in the moment, but each relationship also changed the power dynamics permanently. By 1977, something unprecedented had happened in Hollywood. Warren Beatty had become untouchable, not because he was the biggest star, not because he made the most money, not because he had the best agent, because firing Warren Beatty meant explaining to someone's daughter why you destroyed her ex-boyfriend's career, or someone's sister why you're blacklisting the guy she's dating, or someone's wife why you're trying to ruin the man she left you for. And most of those daughters, sisters, and wives had their own connections, their own relationships, their own ability to make your professional life complicated. The web worked both ways. A studio head at MGM wanted Beatty off a project. Too difficult, too expensive, too many demands. He called the director, told him to find another lead. That night, he went home to find his wife upset. "I heard you're trying to fire Warren from that film. How did you?" "Nancy called me. She's very upset about it." Nancy was the wife of the studio head's biggest investor. The studio head called the director back. The next morning, "Let's give Warren another week to work things out." Nobody had threatened him. Nobody had made demands. His wife had just mentioned a phone call, but he understood the message. This wasn't about Warren Beatty anymore. This was about relationships that mattered more than one film's budget. Another executive at Paramount wanted to leak a negative story about Beatty, control the narrative, make him look difficult so other studios would think twice. His publicity head said, "Are you sure you want to do that?" "Why wouldn't I? His current girlfriend is Senator Morrison's daughter." The executive paused. "The banking committee, Morrison, the same one who's reviewing our merger next month." The story never leaked. This is how power actually works. Not through force, through the uncomfortable realization that the person you're about to hurt is connected to someone who can hurt you back worse. And here's what made Beatty's position truly unassailable. He never weaponized these relationships. He never called anyone's father asking for favors, never threatened to mention someone's wife to the press, never used his connections to pressure anyone. He didn't need to. The connections existing was enough. Every executive who thought about coming after Beatty had to ask themselves, who is he connected to that I don't know about? Whose daughter did he date that I've forgotten? Which family considers him a friend? The uncertainty was more protective than any actual threat. You can defend against a known attack. You can't defend against attacks that might come from directions you can't predict. By 1979, Warren Beatty was operating under completely different rules than any other actor in Hollywood. He showed up late to meetings. No consequences. He rewrote contracts after signing them. Studios accepted the changes. He walked off sets when he disagreed with directors. Production waited for him to come back. Any other actor would have been blacklisted, sued, or dropped from projects. Beatty, he got apologetic phone calls asking what it would take for him to return. Directors noticed it first. When Beatty was on set, studio executives were unusually deferential, not because of his talent, because of who might call them if Beatty complained. Producers noticed it second. When negotiating Beatty's contracts, their lawyers would say, "Just give him what he wants. It's not worth the fight." Not because Beatty was difficult, because the fight might involve people outside the negotiation room. Other actors noticed it third, and they started trying to replicate it. But you can't replicate what Beatty had built, because Beatty's relationships were genuine. He actually cared about these people, actually maintained friendships after relationships ended, actually showed up for their family events. Other actors tried to date strategically, but strategy without authenticity is transparent, and transparency is powerless. Beatty's power came from the fact that he never acted like these relationships were strategic. He treated everyone well, stayed friends with his exes, remembered birthdays, showed up when it mattered. So when someone tried to attack him, these people defended him, not because they had to, because they wanted to. And here's the moment that revealed the full extent of what he'd built. In 1981, a major studio executive decided he was done with Warren Beatty. Too much drama, too many complications, too many people he had to tiptoe around. He called a meeting with his top executives. "Warren Beatty is out. We're not working with him anymore. I don't care who he knows. I don't care who calls. We're done." Within 24 hours, he received 7 phone calls. a senator he'd never met, asking about the situation with Warren, just checking in, a banker who controlled their line of credit, mentioning casually that his daughter was upset about something. Did he know anything about that? An investor's wife, saying her sister was very disappointed in recent decisions. Nothing specific, just disappointed. A board member's son, asking if there was a problem with Warren. His girlfriend wanted to know. 3 more calls from people he couldn't trace back to their source, but all of them mentioning Beatty, all of them expressing concern. The executive never formally reversed his decision. He just never implemented it. And Warren Beatty kept working at that studio for another decade. Warren Beatty became untouchable, not through intimidation, but through integration. He didn't threaten Hollywood's power structure. He became part of its family structure. And you can't attack family without attacking yourself. He wasn't loud about it, never bragged about his connections, never name-dropped, never mentioned who he knew or who he'd dated. He just lived his life, dated who he wanted, maintained his friendships, and let the web protect itself. The industry adjusted around him, not through formal policy changes, through informal understanding. "Don't mess with Warren Beatty" wasn't written anywhere. It didn't need to be. Every executive learned it the same way, by watching what happened to executives who tried. Nothing dramatic ever happened. No public fights, no lawsuits, no scandals, just phone calls, uncomfortable questions, relationships getting complicated, and suddenly it was easier to give Warren Beatty what he wanted than to fight about it. And here's what made this different from traditional power. Traditional power is adversarial. You have it or you don't. You use it or you lose it. You're either powerful or powerless. Beatty's power was relational. The more people tried to push him out, the more relationships activated to pull him back. It was self-reinforcing, self-protecting, self-perpetuating. By 1983, Warren Beatty wasn't Hollywood's most bankable star. He wasn't its highest-paid actor. He wasn't its most critically acclaimed artist, but he was its most protected person. And protection, it turns out, is more valuable than any of those other things. Because talent can fade, box office can drop, critical acclaim can disappear, but relationships, real relationships built over decades with people who actually care about you, those don't fade. They compound. Warren Beatty understood something most people never learn. In industries built on relationships, the deepest power isn't controlling people, it's being genuinely connected to them. So here's the question. In an industry where everyone's networking, where everyone's using relationships strategically, where everyone's trying to climb over each other, what happens when someone actually builds real relationships? Not transactional ones, not strategic ones, real ones where people defend you because they want to, not because they have to. What happens when your protection doesn't come from fear, but from the uncomfortable fact that hurting you means hurting people who matter to the people trying to hurt you? If that's the kind of power that interests you, the kind that doesn't announce itself, that doesn't threaten, that just makes attacking you more complicated than anyone wants to deal with, consider subscribing. We explore how real power works, not the version where you dominate people, the version where you become so integrated into the system that removing you would damage the system itself.